Hey everyone, Melanie here. Glad to be joining you for another session to try and help you land that job faster. So today, job seekers are going to be doing things a little bit different. We're going to be trying to focus more and more on the questions that you have that you don't get a chance to talk with somebody about. So I know some of you have already sent in questions in advance. Thank you for that. We will be making sure we cover all of those. But if you haven't yet sent in a question that you have about your job search or about your career, please feel free to go ahead and put it into the comments now into the chat, and I will make sure that we get through each and every one. As always, Maureen is with us behind the scenes monitoring the chat, and she will be making sure that we do cover all of the different questions that are answered there. I also today am going to show you something new and special that LinkedIn has. And that is they just recently this week changed LinkedIn Recruiter and gave us additional search options. And they did it with AI. And so I'm going to take you through and show you live what the LinkedIn AI actually is and how it actually works. And so you can see, because I think it's important for you as job seekers to know about it, because there is a chance that this is going to, like everything else, adjust the way that recruiters and companies are entering data, which is going to adjust the way that you come up in searches. So I'm going to do a bunch of questions first, but then I am going to go back there, show you LinkedIn Recruiter Live and show you that AI feature. And how it's now open to us in LinkedIn Recruiters. I've been playing with it for a while to try and see exactly what it does and what it does not do. So I will take some time to show that to you. So again, if you have any questions that you want us to cover today, please do make sure and put them in the comments. It's always great to hear from you. And if you'd like to help support our efforts that our team does to try and help job seekers, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe. That is one of the things that YouTube helps for all of our videos for job seekers to reach more of them. So if you subscribe, if you ring that bell, anytime you interact with one of our videos, our live streams on YouTube, on LinkedIn, all of that, it helps for them to share the information with more and more job seekers. Okay, so good morning. I can already see that there is a bunch of people that have joined us. I can see from the Chicago area, Joanne, it's great to see you. Ben is joining us all the way from Florida. Sandra is here from Houston. Sandra, I saw some of your questions come in to the chat actually yesterday, I think it was. So I can see we have Boston. I can see San Antonio, New Hampshire. Wonderful. It's great to have you guys all here. All right, I'm going to jump right into the questions so we can get as many as we possibly can answered at once. And I'm going to start with Sandra. Sandra had asked the question here of when is the best and worst times to look for a job on LinkedIn or any other platform. So let's talk about how those jobs come on to the systems to start. More and more, the larger companies are taking their applicant tracking systems, whether they're using SuccessFactors or Workday or whatever, and they're actually tying those directly into LinkedIn. And because of that, the system is doing an automatic refresh upload into the systems, which is a lot of times why you see jobs reposted or you keep seeing appear again and again. It's because the applicant tracking systems are just leading them right through. Now they can, in that system, actually open a new job and force it to go through immediately. It's a little different on how it's handled with the different systems. But you have to think about this the same way you think about how the recruiters and people posting the jobs are working. You don't tend to see as many jobs posted on the weekend on like a Saturday or on a Friday night. But what you do see actually is a lot of job postings go up on Sunday night. And the reason for that is a lot of recruiters and talent acquisition people are trying to get a jump on the week and trying to say, oh, I see these new recs that are open. Okay, I'm going to make sure that they get posted out there. And so all of a sudden they appear on the job things on actually Sunday night. There is not a way that I am aware of on those different systems that the way it feeds through with LinkedIn to delay your post. You either, when you click it, it automatically goes live, or you can turn it off, right? It's on or off, but it's not a live thing. Now, a lot of them will show faster on the company website than it will on the different systems like LinkedIn that it's feeding the data to. So if you have a set of target companies, if you live 2 minutes down the road from Exxon, and that is the company that you really truly want to get with, my recommendation is before you even are considering looking on LinkedIn, you're always looking at their website to see what has popped up there first. And that way you get hopefully into that first set of applicants. I know there's a lot of people that get discouraged by, I saw one the other day that it was like 15 minutes old and it had like 90 some odd applicants in 15 minutes. And you see that more with remote jobs than you do with ones that are on-site or hybrid, because it's just so easy for everybody to apply. But I don't want you to think that it's not worth applying when you see that many applicants starting to get in there, because the reality is a huge subset of those people have absolutely no qualifications for the role, period. They have like nothing, like in human resources, and they're in accounting or they're a driver or something else. So don't let it be that it stops you from applying, because that doesn't mean they've gotten the right candidate yet. Is it important to be one of the more early entry? Absolutely. The sooner you can get on a job posting, the better. But it's not like just because there is 100 already doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. I hope that gives a little bit of help there, Sandra, with that and answers that some for you. Let me see what other questions we have coming in now. This one comes from Danielle Rodriguez. I had an agency call me and it's my dream job. All went well, but not sure how to follow up to ensure I get this job. I know preparation is key, but would like to have your feedback. Okay, so there's a fine line where you don't want to work around an agency, but where there comes a point in time where your focus needs to shift from working with the agency to working with the company. If you've actually gone through and made it past like the first interview of the agency and talked with anybody inside the company, then I would recommend you shift your focus to following up and talking with that person in the company. You're not going to undermine the agency. And here's why: because the agency has an MSA with them. And that MSA states that once you're attached to them and they've submitted you in and the client has started, that process, then any time that you're hired within their time period on their MSA, they still get credit. So if you have moved past that agency interview type of the initial part of the process onto actually meeting with anybody in the company, put your effort forward to the company. I'm not saying to ignore the agency, but definitely put your focus more on the company. And that includes, you do want to follow up, not too much, but enough that you're on their radar. You do want to do thank you notes, and thank you notes being emails, not snail mail. Snail mail is great, but the reality is the recruiting moves so fast nowadays that by the time they get it, a lot of times they've already decided. So I do recommend you follow via email, not the personal notes anymore. If you have not gotten past that agency one, then the agency wants to place you, right? They want to be able to close that role and get the commission that they're going to get off of it. So I think the best thing that you can do is to help build a rapport with the person in that agency. To talk with them about, hey, I really enjoyed our conversation. I went off and did some additional research on the company. Here are some additional things that I think I could bring to the table that they have coming forward. What you don't see as a candidate is when an agency sends in a candidate to a company, they don't just send in your resume and cover letter. They send in some sort of summary about you. And that summary and how big or small it is depends on the level of positions. So for example, if it's a safety manager, it might just be a paragraph explaining what they did to interview this person and how they feel like they're a good match for the role. If it's something higher, if it's a VP, if it's a C-suite, we actually submit in full packages on the people where we may have done competency assessments. We may have done reference checks already for the people, and much, much larger explanation of all the other things about that person that's not on the resume. So because you know that the recruiters and agencies are doing that, the more that you can make their life easy by giving them that information, the better you are. So if you're an accountant and you help by writing up, for this role, here's some exact things of how I match. They're saying they're looking for somebody that can do G&L, ledger analysis and audit. Well, I actually did this in my last company, which was a global company that was under SOX compliance, and we were able to do the following. And so the more data you can give them like that of helping them make the match makes their job easier to convince that hiring company that you're the right match. I hope that answers your question, Daniel. Okay, let's go through. Maureen is going to be entering in some of the questions that we received via email and on LinkedIn. So here is one from her right now. There is an abundance of content posted daily on guidance for job seekers, but it all contradicts itself. Yes, it does. What to do to manage all of this? Oh my goodness, everybody and their dog is giving advice to job seekers. And the reality is a lot of them should not be giving advice. But there are some really great ones to listen to. And so here is what I always recommend for job seekers that are in this overwhelming amount of data in situation is, one, if they can't give you facts as to why they're saying something or a reasonable argument that's not just clickbait emotion, then that's not somebody that I would follow. And a great example I will give you is this open to work banner. There's always drama about it. There's been studies showing it helps you get a job faster. There's a lot of clickbait about don't turn it on because it makes you look desperate. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. There's no fact that it makes you look desperate. There's no study that's ever said. We've touched base with tons of other HR people and recruiters. And there's a reason why LinkedIn in particular shows to recruiters that you're open to work and you're an active job seeker, because that's who the recruiters want to go for. So follow facts, right? So look at the studies and the things that are done, not clickbait. And then the other thing that I always recommend is look at the job history of the person that's giving you advice. If somebody is giving you career advice that has had 10 jobs in 2 years, that may not be the right person to take a career advice from. They may be able to help you with other things, but career advice is probably not their go-to skill. The other thing is if you see somebody that has completely is switching jobs and is not making any movement forward, look at their job history, pull them up on LinkedIn, see what they have to bring to the table. Now, just because I'm not saying don't take advice from people that are out of work or something like that, because there was a great geologist, his name is Jason, and he is somebody who was going for a geology, and when the oil and gas was really down, and when he was out of work, he was still helping other job seekers by leads and contact information in that world. He actually ended up landing in a federal job and then helped people find geologist roles in a federal. So there's ways to get data from people, but look what their skills and specialty are, stick to the facts, and then definitely look at their history. Look at what they have brought to the table over time. Because if you wouldn't want their career path, then you probably don't want them giving you career advice. Okay. Hello, Matt. There is from Columbia River Gorge. I'm going to visit there one day. It's absolutely beautiful in all the pictures. We have Florida, Canada, Washington, D.C. Good to see you all. Okay. Let's go to Valerie. What is the reason I'm being passed over for a second interview when I believe I am qualified? Okay, so here's the great thing first. One, you're getting to the interview stage. So that's good news, Valerie, right? So at least your resume, your online presence as a job seeker is getting noticed, and you're actually getting called to get an interview. or come in to get an interview. So now the question is, how do you get to the second stage? And there's definitely things that will rule you out faster than others. Communication skills can't be measured on a resume. Communication skills are measured when you have that first interview. If you feel like there might be an issue with your communication skills, that's all about practice. Some things that we do sometimes that we don't even realize, there's a thing called vocal diffusers. And it's like, where you're using a word for the pauses in your speech. And it's something that becomes very natural to you that you may not be even realize you're doing, that it's something that if you record yourself doing answering an interview question, you can more easily notice, or practice with another person is a way that you can notice that. So there are some communication things like that that can help. But in general, what companies are looking to get you through that first phone interview to the next is actually key skills. And it's because usually that first interview is with a recruiter or a talent acquisition person, and they're almost checking things off a box first as fatal flaws. Okay, the hiring manager said they really want somebody that has a degree in chemical engineering. They really want this person to be able, that they're willing to relocate to this location. They're willing to travel this amount. Their salary does not exceed this amount. Those are what we call like gating questions. And so there is a chance that you're not matching up with those gating questions. Can you do anything about that? Some things yes, and some things no. You can give yourself a little, on the salary side, you can give yourself a little bigger range and worry about the more nuanced negotiation later on. But you can't change things like if the hiring manager said, well, I really have to have somebody that has 10 years with SAP, and if they don't have it, I don't want to see them. You can't change that, right? But most times it's on that skills. And so you can usually figure out what they're going to be asking you by going to the job description and saying or looking at the required skills. This position requires 10 years of experience with SAP. This position requires a PMP certification. This position requires a this, as opposed to those which are more of a preferred. Now, once they get past, if they love you with all the skills that you have, then you start to see them focusing more on these behavioral-based interview questions, because then they're trying to check the soft competencies, and they're trying to check that the experience that you said you've had on your resume, you've really had, and understanding more what your impact is. So in the beginning, they may ask you something like, do you have a PMP? But then when they get to the yes, you said yes, and then they're past these gating, they're going to switch that question to, tell me about a time when you were working a project with the organization where there was a challenge. How did you address that challenge, and what was the end result? And they're trying to dig in more with your experience and stuff like that. If you feel like you're just not putting your best foot forward on interviews, there is an absolute hack to interviews, and that is practice, practice, practice. The more you practice interviewing skills, the better you get at it. So we do have a interview boot camp on our YouTube channel that you can go through. It gives you the most asked interview questions, how they're usually asked, and what the recruiters or talent acquisition people are looking for in an answer to those kind of questions. So if you just feel like your interview skills need an uptick, by all means, please feel free to go off and use that. All those resources are out there for free. We do actually offer we do offer the one-on-one coaching, and we do offer one-on-one mock interview practice. When we do it, my light just turned off because I'm sitting too still. When we do that, what we do is we actually take you through an interview for a job, and then at the end, we give you feedback on how you answer in each one. But we do have for free all of that information on our YouTube if you want to go down that path. Okay, let's see. We have people from Chicagoland. Let's see. Let's go to JMW. Sometimes the fiscal year is a factor for when some companies post. July can be slow if the fiscal year ended in June. This is absolutely true. And there's lots of different cyclical things that happen with companies. For example, if you are a publicly traded company, we tend to see all of the hiring take a huge nosedive in October, November, December. And the reason for that is because they're trying to make their end of year numbers so they can report to the street that their annual numbers were good and everybody gets their bonuses and all of that. So you tend to see that happen. You don't see their recruiting pick back up until usually about February because they're all getting their budgets approved in January and getting approval for all the roles. This is different than nonprofits and a lot of time government agencies where they are given a budget for the whole year. And if they don't hire somebody within the end of the year, then they lose it and they have to redo it for next year with some of them. So when that happens, there's a bigger push for those to get those hired and through. More and more companies are aligning their fiscal year with the calendar year. And I think that's just because of taxes and it makes it a little bit easier. But there are definitely some, like she is saying, that are still on a mid, June, July, whenever they choose fiscal calendar end. And it doesn't tie and attach with the other. There are also companies that are very, very, very dependent on seasonal. So if they are something that requires, snow to, for their company to have a huge hiring, if it's something that requires a growing season, if it's something that requires a recreation season, there's tons of things like that too, which can impact. So when you have a target company that you're trying to get in with, those are some of the things you want to look at. Go to their company website and see on their reports if you can see when their fiscal report is. If they're private, I know this is harder, but you should still be able to see kind of seasonally where their focus seems to be, and that will help you understand too when they post. That's a great comment. We have New Jersey. We have Gail Landry. Gail, it's great to see you from Houston. Okay, let's see. Here's another one. If I was with a company from 96 to 2012, but the one position I had is the one that helped me build all of my business acumen, how can I only show that position? Wait, there's a second part to this. How can I only show that position or just show the entire job history at the company? Do I put it under my resume under additional experience? There's no way to do that on LinkedIn. Okay, that is challenging. You are correct. All right, here is my best advice for you on how to do this. When you're doing it on your resume, it's a little different than when you're doing it on LinkedIn. On your resume, you can show more than one job title in the job title field easily. On LinkedIn, you have a little bit of a harder time doing that because you want those job titles to catch when it comes to the actual search filters. Those search filters drive me insane the way it leaves job seekers out sometimes. But anyway, getting on a soapbox. The resume, you could list, like if your last job was, director of total rewards, but the job that you felt like you got the most experience in was human resources business partner, you can list those job titles out in the top. So it's bolded and it catches the attention. If you're trying to do this on LinkedIn, my advice is for you to put your last job title, but you get to control what comes first in those bullets. And while what you put for that first bullet might seem odd on a resume, the first bullet on your LinkedIn, you can put, as an HR business partner from this time to this time, gathered the following, and really quickly get their eye to it, so that you're trying to focus in on that faster than you are the other. You should never lie ever on your LinkedIn profile or on your resume, right? You either have ethics or you don't. You shouldn't lie. But you need to realize that both are marketing tools. They're not legal documents. It becomes more of a legal company document when you're filling in an application and certifying that everything is, exact and true. On the LinkedIn and the resume side, it's okay to translate your experience sometimes into different phrases, different words. And the example I always give to this is there was a large company that always used to call their project management people Tiger Team, like a Tiger Team member. Well, that means nothing to anybody outside of that company. So it's okay to say I was a project manager for this IT implementation. as a job title as opposed to Tiger team member. So I hope that helps. If not, let me know and I will try to see what else we can talk more about it and see what we can do. Sandra asks, can you show us your viewers behind the scenes with other platforms, an example, Indeed? I have shown some other ones in the past. Some of the other systems are a little bit more challenging to hide data of confidential people, of confidential data, right? Because LinkedIn, you're showing profiles, and the profiles, and like when I show you LinkedIn Recruiter, I can hide names and stuff. You don't get that opportunity in the other systems. So it's not something that's easy to show. If you have particular questions about Indeed or something, you please try to put them in and I will try to answer them or get you an answer, but I can't show you every system the same way just because I got to be really careful not to share people's confidential data. And I'll give you an example is I don't want to share that somebody's open to work if they're doing it behind the scenes because they're currently employed. So that would be an example. Okay. Daniel again. Also, a few weeks ago, I got some second interviews. Congratulations. That's great. And tried to follow up with and sent them thank you email, but they are not responding, even though I know I can do the job easily. Why? What is this happening? Why is this happening? It's very possible. It's just not you. It's just there are so many qualified people on the market right now that employers really get their pick. And there can be one tiny thing that makes a difference as to why somebody's chosen over you. Maybe, you both worked in pharmaceutical marketing, but this one person worked with a certain formulation in their pharmaceutical manufacturing that you didn't. So, there's little tiny things that can make a difference. Just because you don't get the job seekers, doesn't mean that you're not amazing and doesn't mean that you're not great. You should feel good that you got to the second interview. I know that doesn't help with paying the bills and all those kind of things. I do recommend you follow up. And when you're following up, just don't follow up, every day, but try to just continue to make I saw you guys are doing this. I'm excited about this. You do need to make sure you're not over anxious in a way. If you're a senior person, that's going to undermine your salary though. If you have the ability to hold out a little bit and just follow up once, if you're following up and they know that you're too desperate, it will affect your ability to negotiate salary. Okay, to circle back to fact finding, any recommendations for reliable sources or organizations that publish studies on job seeking, job market, etc.? Okay, so for the job market, you definitely want to go to and I'm talking in the US here, you definitely want to go to the Department of Labor and take a look at that there, excuse me. If it's something for the job seeking, I recommend you go to the larger companies. It's okay to look at LinkedIn. It's okay. They are measuring the effectiveness of the things that they're doing because they're trying to see what they want to do and what they want to adjust. I know it drives people insane, but a lot of times you'll see somebody else's LinkedIn profile and you'll be like, well, why do you have this? And I have that. A great example of this, the open to work section, for the longest time, for some people, it wouldn't let you put in the 5 locations. It made you put in a zip code and a radius. Or some of them had, here's what I'm looking for in my next position. And it gave you options to choose like medical and benefits. And it's because LinkedIn was testing out new and different things. So I don't recommend you go to something that's clickbait, right? If you're going to just a news article that's out there, that's not the best. There are organizations for HR that do have a talent management focus. The largest HR organization is Society for Human Resources Management. In the US, they are definitely the biggest player, but there's also HRCI and there is also World at Work. And they have different studies and things that they do from different experts looking at things that affect job seekers. So it is something that you can go to those two and try to look at some of the articles. Some of those do require a subscription, but they generally let you get to some articles for free. Reddit is anybody replying with anything. So it's not my preferred one to send people to. And you got to be careful about, the Washington Post is one of the ones that drives me insane because I think they do a lot of clickbait titles trying to get you in, but there are ones that are far worse. So try to focus on like the bigger organizations. You can go to Career Builder, you can go to Monster, you can go to those ones that are larger to try and help you get some of that data. It's okay to look at the data from littler organizations or even individuals if they can give you some type of factual basis or a reasonable story that makes sense, that is not just emotionally based. Okay. Let's see. What advice do you have for someone transitioning from a family business back to corporate? Does my experience in the family business make me less competitive compared to those with consistent jobs? So, okay, first I'm going to say that if you worked in a family business, you had a consistent job. So it's not about consistency. Can it make a difference sometimes? It can hinder you if the industry was very different, or if the role was something different than the role you're trying to get into. Let's say you were a software engineer and you were going software engineer in oil and gas, and then you left for 5 years to run a family restaurant. Is there going to be a concern there that, wait a minute, did they lose all of their industry knowledge? Did they lose their computer knowledge? Absolutely, there is going to be a concern there by the company. I hope that they would sit and, the recruiter would have a conversation with you to discuss that. But it's going to be your responsibility to put as much data on your resume as you possibly can that helps support that you still have the skills that they're looking for. So that could be obtaining new certifications or going through new training, or saying, if when you're working for that family restaurant, you developed a software program or did something contract on the side, which brought in your software development skills, that would be something you're going to want to highlight. So the other thing is, anytime you're trying to make a change or a pivot in your career or your job search, use your network. Use your network, use your network, use your network. Use the people who worked with you in your past companies that know you and know what's so amazing about you that you bring to the table, and say, hey, I'm looking at transitioning back into this. I was hoping to reach out to you and see if you can help me. And that way you get the advantage of your network standing up for you and saying, look, he took a break. I would love for us to bring this person in. You're going to love the skills that this person brings to the table. So does it affect you a little? It can, but you got to market yourself as the role that you want to have. Okay. Is there a book you can recommend for interviews? Okay, so there's lots of books out there. You really don't need a book for interview questions. A good way to do interview questions, if you haven't used ChatGPT, and we show this in a video, you can actually, if you have a job that you're targeting, you can take that job, put it out into ChatGPT, which is free, and say, create questions and interview questions and answers for these responsibilities on this job description. And it will prompt creating the questions and creating the answers. Now, please don't use those answers to just go off and answer the interview that you're doing. But what it does is it gives you a question and then kind of shows you like a sample answer that will help you in your mind to say, oh, okay, well, that makes me think of this when I did this back in my job. So it helps you from not starting from a blank space. So from that standpoint, from the actual interview questions, I think that is more helpful than any of these other books that, just list the questions. I don't think you need to pay for that. But if you're looking for a great book for the competency side, there is a book called The Ideal Team Player. And it is a book that I do recommend. And it talks through the 3 things that companies and individuals are always looking for. And that is humble, hungry, and smart. It's not what you think probably those humble, hungry, smart necessarily are. If you have time, you can even go out and Google search this. It's called The Ideal Team Player. And it's the 3 things it gives you is humble, hungry, smart. And it talks with you about why those are important and what they're looking for. It's something that we use when we're interviewing candidates. It is a hugely impactful way to look at candidates to make sure that they're successful in their roles and have all those great soft competencies that companies want. Good question. Okay. Susan, I have gaps in my history due to taking time off after a high pressure job relocating. I had a temp job ending in March. I've been on a mental health break since. How can I make these gaps look better? Okay, so companies need to get over gaps a little bit. I mean, I think that people have lives that they need to be able to feel comfortable to do what they need to do after relocating or taking a personal break, right? So without knowing the length of the gaps and whatever, but generally, when they're talking with you and they're trying to understand the gaps, they're looking for like red flags. A red flag of why you would have a gap would be if you were terminated for cause from a position and you were terminated because you had a fight with another employee, you guys got into a fist fight and you were both terminated for cause, right? That's what I mean by terminated for cause. We're not talking about getting laid off and things like that, or you choosing to resign, but something like that is something that would be concerning for another company. So when they see a gap, a lot of times they're concerned about red flag issues like that. So one of the ways is to very quickly address this gap. And you can actually even do this on your resume. I've seen, some people do it that they feel like they have too many gaps, and it's fine. It doesn't turn off a recruiter or talent acquisition. If you relocate from one town to another, it's fine to put in on your resume towards the top, say, left position due to relocation to Canada, wherever you relocated to. And that's completely fine. And you're answering that question really fast for them and turning, a potential red flag into a green flag. It's fine. You relocated. If you did something that you took a personal break, that's fine too. It's fine you do not ever have to release your personal medical information to a company. And any company that asks you for your personal medical information, that's a red flag back on them. That should never, ever be happening. So you do not have to tell why you took a break if you took a break for a medical reason. If you want to, that's your choice, but you don't have to, right? It's within your control. So if you are just decided to resign from position or a contract just ended, you can still put information out there if it's been a long duration that you haven't been working about what you've been doing in the meantime to keep your skills active. Now, if it's just since March, I wouldn't worry about that. It's not that far, March to June. I know it's almost July. It's still not that far. This is not the market of our parents and grandparents where you could go out and the job process was different. This is a crazy different job market, and it takes longer to get a job. Even though we have all these systems that speed up so many of the different recruiting processes, like we don't have to wait for a job posting to be put in the newspaper and then people to mail in their resumes, let's open them and look at them all, right? But what it has done is it's flooded recruiters and talent acquisition people with candidates, some great, some not so great. And so because of that flood, it actually a lot slows down the process because it's too hard to get through everybody quickly. So I'm not worried about a gap from March to June, and I don't think you should be either. If you think it starts to become a continuing issue, then you can always create a cover letter that talks about what you've been doing to keep your skills active during that time, or even put that on your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And we do show you how to do that in videos on our website. So on our YouTube channel, sorry, not our website. So if you need that, feel free to go out and you can search that. Okay. Sanche, I try to take feedback from recruiters after interviews. Got no responses back yet. What is the best way to go for feedback from interviews? This is tricky and challenging. And the reasons are a couple. One is you have to think of the motivation of the recruiters and the talent acquisition. They're trying to get these positions filled and are measured by time to fill, time to hire metrics. And so they're trying to get it done as quickly as possible. And so a lot of times they won't always have the time or won't choose to give feedback. Another reason is some people are very open to getting feedback and use it. Other people, once you give them feedback, try to argue against the feedback. And you can, say, well, they didn't feel like your communication skills were quite the level they wanted. Well, my communication skills are fantastic and I'm da-da-da. And once a recruiter gives that feedback a couple times and they get that argument back really hard at them, it tends to stop them from wanting to do it again. So I know it can be challenging, to get it. Some companies are great. Some companies are so great about it. But a good way to do that is if you have a recruiter that you worked with, that was an outside agency recruiter, if you can, try to get it from them rather than from the company. And sometimes you can build a rapport with them, and sometimes they'll give it to you a little bit easier. I know it's hard. Not getting feedback. It's just sometimes challenging for them to do it. Okay, a few weeks ago, got second interview, sent thank you email and follow up in linking with person. However, I'm assuming meaning not responding back. Why is that? I can't talk about the personal things for that person. Most times, I know people that are interviewing for jobs, when they try to connect, most times the hiring managers will connect with that person. So I'm not 100% certain as to why they're not in this case. But if you've tried, I would maybe back off a little bit and leave it alone and move on and spend your energy someplace else that you think might be a better path into you to your next good job. I'm going to take a couple more questions. What time is it? It is 10:41. At 11 o'clock, I'm going to switch and I'm going to show you that new thing that LinkedIn released this week on all of the AI search on LinkedIn Recruiter. And we can talk a little bit about how I think that's going to, again, change the way that recruiters and companies are searching for you. I'll do that right at 11 o'clock. Excuse me. Okay. I recently read an article about job postings that use specific language to deter older job seekers from applying, yet it is a senior role. Advice. Yeah, my goodness. Sometimes what they will do is say, looking for entry-level HR generalist. I'm looking for a, something that's got a non-age related word, but it seems to be pointing that way. There was a movie, I keep forgetting the name of this movie. I think it's called The Interns, that was about, making fun of a company that put out these intern positions, and these two older gentlemen applied for them and got in as the interns. It's a comedy. I think it's called The Interns. But does this happen? It does happen. It does happen. Now, I know there's a lot of concern from people about age discrimination. And age discrimination definitely, absolutely happens. But I also think job seekers, you sometimes use it as a crutch of saying, I'm not getting a job just because of age discrimination. And I'm not sure that that is always the case. A lot of times, as we do get older, we do have higher salary levels. And because we've earned it. Right? I mean, we've worked hard to get where we are. We've gained skills, we've gained experience, we've gained knowledge, right? And so there is a salary that we're now accustomed to getting. And not all companies can afford us at the level that we're wanting to come in. And you know what? That's okay, right? If they have a position that they were only budgeted up to 75,000 and you're used to making 150, well, that's obviously not a match. So I think a lot of times that ends up happening, or people get ruled out because companies think they're going to be over salary range. And this is one of those dual-edged swords that we are making progress on in an HR community. More and more salary transparency laws are coming into effect in different states and different cities where companies have to post a range. And originally I was like, oh, they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't do that. Years ago, I was like, and now the more it gets into it, the more I like it. The more I'm like, yeah, they should have to put in a salary range. So you job seekers it takes a long time to apply for a job online. It's not like an easy process that you just, here's my resume and you're done. You've emailed it to them. They want you to go through and fill out a ton of information, answer all these questionnaires that they're required to do by the government. I get it. It is time consuming. And you may not do that if you know the position only had a salary range this big and you're a good $30,000 above it. So I'm actually now a proponent of salary, and I think that you're going to see the market continuing to move that way. And as it does, that's going to help some, I think, with people who feel like they're getting ruled out because of ageism, seeing that this role isn't going to be the right thing for them. And it's going to help companies see that I gave this range, and this person who has 30 years experience would love to be in this position. They would love to come and take this role. So I'm not going to rule them out just because I see that they have 30 years of experience. So the other thing I tell people, are there some companies who just discriminate? Yes. If you have them, if you can prove it, report them, right? Because that's how things change, is when if they won't change it and fix it on their own, report them so that the EEOC can help correct that bad behavior. But if, let's say, there is a company who's looking at your resume and you hide and you only put the last 10 years, when you meet them for an interview, if they're ingrained that they're going to discriminate, they're going to do it anyway, silently in the interview. And then you've just wasted all that time. And so I'd rather not waste the time. If they don't want me because of my age, I'd rather know now than later. If they do it and I catch them doing it, though, I'm going to report it in. Okay, let's go to the next question. How to find small companies that are looking to hire. So that's a great question, because everybody gets so tied into these job boards, and these job boards cost money, right? They cost money. It is not free to post on any of these job boards. That's how they make all their money and get their revenue. But smaller companies, one, they can do it on their own website and through their own social media for free, right? And they can do it by not doing a job posting where they're paying for the posting, but just doing a post on a news feed. And those are free, whether it's on LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever one, Facebook they're choosing to use. So the way to find about these is, one, to figure out who your target companies are first. And you can keep, if you've got a set and you feel like you can't find something within them, you can keep expanding out who those target companies are, and then looking at them, not through the big boards, but go to their own website, look at their other social media, look at the news feeds in their social media. If it's a small enough company, I'm telling you, go knock on a door and walk in if they're in your local area. I know lots of people that have gotten hired, especially a lot of college grads, I can tell you too, that got hired into CGL engineering by taking the time and knocking on the door and introducing themselves. So there are ways to do it really grassroots if you have a target company you want to go visit, but you can also do it by trying to look at all their other social media and see where they're putting their jobs. You can also still do the cold email in and say, I'm looking for this type of job, wondering. For a smaller company, you have a better chance of it getting seen than if you're, approaching the president of a 50,000 employee company. Okay, I think we have time for at least one, maybe two more. How do I stay motivated during the job hunt? Should I apply for jobs on site or on LinkedIn? Okay, two questions. Let's do the first one. It is so hard to be a job seeker. It is so hard. You do all of this work into abysses. Sometimes you get a nice message back saying, thank you for submitting, and then you don't hear anything. Sometimes you immediately get the no. It is really, really hard. The best way, I think, to see or to keep yourself motivated when you're job seeking is, one, to make sure you're tracking everything you're doing. Because it can be really hard to feel like you're making progress if you're not tracking and seeing, well, look, I actually reached out to these 5 people today, and I did the following, and I did this. And you can see actual activities you accomplish, which brings me to the second thing is, if your goal in the job search process is to find a job, it is soul crushing. Now, I know that that's the end goal, right? I know that that's the vision, that you're in a fantastic new job that you love. But if you set that as every day, here's my goal to find a new job, at the end of every day until you find that, you're going to think you failed. You're going to think, I didn't find a new job today, I failed. And you can't do that. The goals need to be smaller. The goals need to be, okay, today in my job search, I'm going to go to 2 networking meetings. I'm going to reach out to 4 companies with cold emails. I'm going to go and look at the following 3 job boards and apply. Whatever it is, set smaller, realistic goals of what you can get accomplished today. And the same way as when you're working a full-time job, you have to take your personal time and your personal breaks, right? And you do that nights and weekends if you're on a day job. You need to do the same thing as a job seeker. You do need to stay focused. It is a 40-hour plus a week job to be a job seeker. It's not a 2-hour a day activity, right? This is your full-time job. Unless you have a survival job you're trying to keep up at the same time, it's your full-time job being a job seeker. But you do need to take that time off when you need it on nights or weekends or wherever your work-life balance is to keep care of you. But definitely shorten your goals and it can help. Okay, should I apply for jobs on site or on LinkedIn? Okay, so this is something that we've talked about in the past because in LinkedIn, it is nice because you can apply. Usually most applicant tracking systems now you can apply with your resume or you can apply with your LinkedIn profile, at least a lot of the bigger ones in the bigger companies. And when you do it with LinkedIn, it feeds through everything really, really fast. With your resume, the parsing is not always quite as good, but nowadays it does feed through 95% of it pretty good. And the rest of it nowadays on most of them is still keyword searchable. But which is better if you're trying to be one of those first applicants and you have a target company, like we were talking about early, go to that target company so you can make sure that you get that resume in as fast as possible. It may not even have posted on LinkedIn or other places yet. So if it's a target company, try to stay up with their site. If not, then, once you get past that very, very initial thing, it really doesn't matter that terribly much other than you just get to tie in your whole LinkedIn profile. I will say though, LinkedIn does have they have that active talent. I showed these, I think, in our last live stream that we did. They have the active talent, highly likelihood of interest, and one other, which I'm forgetting. And those are different indicators that LinkedIn gives to recruiters and talent acquisition people in LinkedIn Recruiter that are trying to say, okay, these people are more likely to respond when you're sending them messages about jobs or more likely to be interested in a position because they're active talent. And those things will not be triggered if you're applying on the company website, if you're bypassing LinkedIn. They will be triggered if you're applying on LinkedIn. So a good balance there would probably be in your best interest. Okay, it's 10:53. We got time for, I think, another question. Let's see. Hi, Melanie. Is it better in the current DEI environment to skip self-identifying on the online applications? I'm a white male. No, it definitely is not, because the information is kept completely separate, which is why it may drive you insane. But if you're applying for like 3 roles for the same company, and you go through, a lot of times you have like a profile built in their company, but every time you apply for a job, it makes you fill out those forms again. Those forms are not visible to the recruiters and talent acquisition and hiring managers. It's not part of the system that they can see. They're utilized for government reporting. Your choice to self-identify as you, but they cannot see that data. So it's not kept in the same place. So don't worry, it's parsed separate in the system. So it's not a concern at all. Let's see. Maureen is entering a question from somebody. If I'm trying for a job in another state but can't move until I get the role, should I change my location on my profile to the new location or keep it where I am now and use willing to relocate in several spots on my profile? Okay, so this is a good question. So we do actually have a couple of videos that talk about how to do this, but let me give you the skinny on it. So if you're looking for a job in another state and you're 100% going to be moving to that state, like let's say your spouse got a job in Florida, and you're going to be moving to Florida sometime in the next 6 to 9 months. And then what you can do is you can change your primary location on LinkedIn to where you're going to be relocating. And that's totally fine. You just need to, and that way it's going to make you come up in that primary search. You just need to make sure that as soon as you get on the phone with somebody, that you explain to them really quickly on, well, I am going to be relocating to Florida in the next I am looking for a job there and targeting my job search there. And that way it works for the search, but you're making sure you're being really upfront and honest with that information and data. If it's one location and you're going to be there, I recommend that path. If you don't know you're going to be there, or you're unsure, I'm willing to go to these 3 states, or I'm not sure which location, then you are better off just using in the open to work feature, the place where you can list other states that you're willing to open to relocating to. And then there's nothing wrong with putting it at the top of your resume and putting it like maybe in the top of the about summary section on your profile that you're willing to relocate. That's totally fine as well. But if you're going, change your primary location to it, and you can have a much better chance to get noticed by people. Okay, let's see. Jamie Lee, wanting to transition from education into corporate, and I'm struggling with translating my experience. Do you have any resume writers that could help me get started with the revamping my resume? So listen, we actually used to offer resume writing as one of the services we offer. And I said, we're not going to do it. We're not going to market anymore that we do it, because you can do this yourself for free. Now, we do still do it for some people, but what we do is we just have them book under our normal one-on-one hour time and do it that way. But here's what I'm going to tell you is we have a template out there that is completely free for you, and a video which will walk you through. And if you're trying to transition from education, we have 4 videos that we did specifically for you. We did them how to get your resume from teaching and education with actual bullets of how to translate the great data that you did in education into a corporate job. So please feel free to utilize those 4 videos that are out there. Just go out to the YouTube and search for teachers, and you will find those 4 videos, or reach out to our team if you can, and we'll send you the link to them. If you really want assistance, one-on-one with your resume, we're happy to do that. Just go to the CGL Recruiting website, go to Job Seeker Assistance, and you're going to see we only have one offering now, and that's to book one-on-one time. When you do book one-on-one time with us, what we do, we take it and we make it different for each person based on their needs, because job seekers, every one of you is different and has different needs, right? This is not a one-size-fit-all type of scenario. So if you need help with your resume, we do that. What we do for almost everybody is we do take you back onto LinkedIn Recruiter to show you live where you're falling in and out of searches. I actually have somebody that I'm working with right now. I was working with her yesterday, and she has a degree listed on her LinkedIn profile that she graduated with a bachelor's degree. She actually graduated with honors. And yet when I search in LinkedIn Recruiter for a degree, it doesn't recognize that she has a degree. So we tried several things yesterday where we keep testing it to see how we get her to come up in that search. We had her take everything out of her education, put it back in. And I actually followed up with her this morning, and we're going to meet again tomorrow till we can get this issue rectified for her. Because it's things like that, job seekers, you never know and you never see, which is why we do that as part of our one-on-ones to make sure we test your data. Okay, sorry. I don't know why I have a cough going on, but what are things that job candidates do unknowingly that hurt their case when dealing with recruiters and hiring managers? Oh, this is a really good question, Alex. Okay, I will tell you, sometimes candidates are too informal with recruiters, and they don't give them the same respect as internal talent acquisition and internal recruiters. We've seen it all. We've had somebody, come in with like food, doing a face-to-face interview with us, answering the phone in the middle, doing things that are disrespectful that you would never do with a company if you were interviewing with a company, but you think it's okay to do when you're interviewing with a recruiter. Holy cow, do not do those, because they're trying to decide if they want to put their name and attach their name to you and be able to show you to an organization. And if they feel like you're going to do that with them, I don't know if you're going to do that with a company. And that's concerning. And I may not want to put my reputation on the line for you. So that is definitely something as formal as you are in the regular interview, you want to be formal in the one with the recruiters. The other things a lot of times that rules people out is there's a sweet spot when you're answering questions. If a question is asked and you are just spouting back a job description and not giving information that's detailed about what you did, that's a problem. So if I say, tell me about a time where you worked an accounts payable issue that came up with one of the vendors that you were dealing with. And you say, well, those kind of issues happen all the time. Anytime you're dealing with vendors, there's always accounts payable issues. And I do my best to try and work on them and solve them. You've given me a job description answer as opposed to a real work example. So what they're looking for when they do that is not anything that's generic. They want something specific. Well, there was this one time I was dealing with a vendor who we were the payment terms were 90 days, and they sent us a letter saying they wanted to adjust the payment terms to 30 days. And that didn't work for our organization. So I had to go back and we scheduled a meeting with them to have a conversation about how we could still maintain the relationship between us and them as a vendor and be able to get to payment terms that worked for both. After that meeting, we were able to get to 45 days, which ended up working for both organizations. That's giving them real world data. If you just give the job description data, that's a problem. Now let's go the other side of that pendulum. If I ask you, tell me about a time, the same question, and you go off for 30 minutes trying to explain that one thing and it's too detailed, then I'm starting to worry about your communication skills and ability to capture data and report it in a succinct manner to other individuals in the organization. So you want to give details, but you don't want to go too far in the weeds that it's getting to be where you've just spent 20 minutes on one question without even giving the recruiter time to talk. That is some things that I think can definitely be an issue or a problem when you're doing it. Good question, Alex. Okay, it is 11 o'clock. Maureen, if you could help me by remembering where I am in the questions, I'm going to do my best to log back onto those, but I want to share my screen and show everybody this change that happened to LinkedIn Recruiter. Let me add this in. Okay. So in the past, my goodness, hold on, coffee. Melanie's favorite owl mug, for any of you that are wondering. Okay. So in the past, when I've always shown you the filters that we utilize in order to do a job search. But what LinkedIn is trying to do now is this AI assisted search. And I'm going to take myself in a different way. So it'll blow this up a little bit. There we go. And so what it wants you to do is to describe your ideal candidate in words or full sentences to get time-saving AI-assisted recommendations. You can use this chat to get recommendations to achieve your hiring goals, add or remove search filters, search based on a single profile. Features always improving, learn more, whatever. So what it's doing, let me move myself so you can see this. Hold on just a sec. Okay, see right down here, there's this type a new request space. So I want to show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to say, all right, well, I guess I am looking for a human resources manager that is in Texas and has 5 years experience in the oil field with also SAP implementation experience. Now, do I love this already? No, because it's way easier for me to put some of this into the different search filters, but I'm going to show you what this does. So I'm going to enter that and I'm going to hit enter. And it's going to process the request. And I want to show you what it's going to do. And so it says a search has been started based on your request. So all of that data, and I've got it hidden so you can't see anybody on LinkedIn. So what it did is it entered human resources manager in the job title field. I'm going to pull myself down again so you can see this a little better. Okay, by me entering all of that data, it entered human resources manager in the job title field. It entered the location of Texas, the skills, SAP products, the industries, oil and gas, and the years of experience, 5 to 30 plus. And that was based on what I had entered up here, which again, 5 years experience, oil field, also SAP implementation experience. So is this great? Did this do a wonderful job? No, it would have been much easier for me to enter that stuff in there than the way that it did it. But let me show you some of the other things that it has here. It's starting, do you see down here to say, do you want to add these skills? And so I'm going to say, okay, let's add leadership and negotiation skills. And then it's going to add those skills and change the search matches. So at the moment, I had 517 before. Now I have 1,600 search results. So not a great way to do it. I'm not sure. Let's say, again, 1,600. I'm going to add project management to the skills. And let's see what happens. Let's see what it does. Now it's 1,800. Okay, so, and I'm going to go back to it in a sec. But see, the issue there is when recruiters are looking and they do these searches, we want, as we're entering more parameters, it to be narrowing down the search, not to keep making the search bigger. So that is a huge concern for me. And to be honest, would stop me from utilizing it more. But I want to show you some more about what this is doing. Okay, whoops, let me do it like this. So one of the other things here, and this is the one that's a little concerning for me, is show me suggested skills. And so when I click on this, I'm going to show you what it brings up. It is saying these are the most common skills for this talent pool. And then it starts adding in skills that it thinks I'm going to want. Now, how did it generate this? It's generating it off of the title that I put in. Now, I've always told you that skills are crazy, crazy important to have. You want to put as many skills out there on LinkedIn as you can to come up in the searches, right? But the question for me that I'm still digging through is where exactly it is pulling these skills from. Is it pulling them from just the skills section? Is it pulling them from anywhere? So I'm still doing research on this and testing it through job seekers, but I did want to show this to you. It also is doing, can you see down here, give me additional search suggestions? It also is starting to give me, let me show you what it does when I do this. It's one of the things right here, which I find very interesting. Let me make it bigger. Do you see this right here? Candidates with connections. And underneath it, it says candidates who are connected to employees at your company on LinkedIn. That to me is a big deal. And that again says the more connections you have, the better. Now, LinkedIn does not, I'm like maxed out at 30,000. And LinkedIn won't raise that number, but they keep tying things back in the searches based on who you're connected to. And that's an issue to me. Because you see that this comes up, if it's a target company for me or for you as a job seeker, I would be certain to say, connect with some people in that company. Figure out who you can connect with in that company. Okay, I want to give you guys a second to ask questions if you have about this AI assisted as well. I'm happy to go back to it. It is new, right? And so I'm going to be testing it and seeing what I think is the best advice for you based on those tests. So I will be focusing our videos on this that are going to be coming out, as well as, in addition to the long videos, when we're trying to get something out quicker, we do the shorts and the reels on Instagram and on YouTube and on Facebook and all of those. So feel free to follow so you can see some of those quicker if you want to see faster what's coming out on some of the LinkedIn AI, but I'm always really hesitant to give you advice on some of those without testing it. So I've tested it enough that I can tell you the skills are crazy important. The connections are still showing very important. The next thing that I'm really trying to test is the titles and where it's pulling the data from. So stay tuned for additional details on that. Okay, let's go through to the next set of questions. Okay, what is the best way to get a state county jobs, as it seems really difficult? It is challenging. It is challenging because you have a lot of people that are applying for it. In general, anytime that you're going for any kind of federal job, it's like a 3-month minimum process to get through it and do it. So my first thing is patience is an absolute virtue. The same way it helps you to know somebody internally with a company, it does help the same way with the state and the federal. There is some sway in there. That person I was talking you about earlier, Jason Flom, who was the one who had done that video with us where he was a geologist in the oil field and then moved into the federal. We did a video with him talking about this and talking about that move into the federal space. So feel free, that video will give you some tips and tricks. And he also posts on a regular basis. So I do recommend going out and connecting with him or following him on LinkedIn. It's Jason Flaum, I believe. And he's in geoscience. And he talks about that process of getting into the federal system. So I think it's always great when you can get somebody like that who's done it successfully. How to give you some good data. Okay. How to transition from oil and gas to healthcare in some kind of support administrative data work. I have a big job gap. How do I get my foot in the door of healthcare? How to network? Need a transitional, I'm guessing, resume writer is what that says. So, okay. So here's the great thing. If you're in an administrative role, then you are in a position that is a shared service. And Word and PowerPoint and Excel don't change because you're in oil gas than when you went into healthcare, right? It's not, the systems don't work differently. So it's just figuring out what's important to them. So if you're in an administrative support, my actual recommendation is for you to go through a staffing service that will help you make this transition. There are staffing firms that focus on healthcare. And so a staffing firm may mean a temp to hire situation. But when you're going through a staffing firm like that, they're going to put their reputation on the line based on the interview that they have with you, that yes, this person has the skills. And when you have a large gap, especially administrative, a lot of times they question, oh, well, I don't know that they can do this skill on Excel. I don't know that they can do this in PowerPoint. And a lot of times the staffing services can even test you on those and then provide their clients with the results of that. So consider going to a staffing firm for that type of thing. Now, in general, how do you get noticed by healthcare if you don't have anything healthcare on your resume or on your LinkedIn profile? Well, that's easy. Start taking some free training on different things that are important to the healthcare market. So, for example, HIPAA is a law that's incredibly important if you're in the healthcare world because it's all about that confidentiality of the employee, the person getting services data. So you might want to go out to YouTube and take, a training thing on HIPAA. Or you might want to go out and do some Google searches of, introduction to the healthcare market. So you understand more and more about it. Healthcare is still an area, especially if you're targeting things like larger scale healthcare operations like hospitals or large care facilities, or if you're even targeting like working for a large benefits provider, they still tend to have job fairs. And it's because they usually have a pretty steady rank of positions open that they're trying to fill. And I do recommend going to job fairs. Job fairs are, when you send in your resume, it's just words on a page, right? When you go to a job fair, you can impress somebody. You can impress somebody with your communication skills. You can impress somebody with your ability to have, translate your skills into what they're looking for. It's a opportunity to build rapport with them. So if you're targeting that area too, go to some of the job fairs and talk with some of the HR and talent acquisition people right then and there. And when you talk with them at this job fair, When you get back to your office, your home, wherever, connect with them on LinkedIn. Send them a connection request saying it was really great to meet you. Would love to connect with you for the future. If you're happy or lucky enough that they connect with you, chances are they have a huge network now in healthcare that is now a second connection to you, which always, always helps. Okay, let's keep going. How do you justify contract work and then have to leave because you got full time? How would you not finish a project for contract work to leave if you find part time? Okay, good question. So contract work is not always, we call things contract work that are like a 1099, and I'm talking more US specific here, that are people that are on a 1099, they're an independent contractor. Contract work does not necessarily mean you are always tied to a full contract. If you are tied to a full contract and you have a legal contract that you have signed saying that you're going to do this work and complete it through to this, then you have a contractual obligation. Most times you don't have that. And people that are doing contract work thinks, oh, well, I took a contract, I have to finish it. That's not always the case, right? A lot of times people hire contractors, they call them contractors, and it's just for a job that they need done. And it's just, they're not bringing them on as an employee, they're bringing them on as a contractor. Now, you don't want to burn companies and burn, past things that you're working with, because it will follow you in the future. So you do need to be a little careful about if they did this whole process to hire a contractor and you, within 2 weeks of starting, decided, hey, I have a better contract, I'm going to jump over to here, you're going to burn them pretty bad. But let's say you're 4 months into a 6-month contract and your life has changed and you're not signed to a contractual agreement that is legally requiring you to complete the contract, then it's okay to leave and go on to something else. So if you don't have a contract, you can do that. Now, if you do that, again, are you going to burn them a little bit? There's potential that you are, if it's something that had a distinct completion date, right? So you can help mitigate that by helping, hey, unfortunately, I'm going to have to be leaving and I'm going to be giving you this week's notice, but I am willing to train somebody. And even after I leave, if you need, some off hours consulting or something to get the new person on board, I am happy to help. Or I know somebody who could come into this contract. So there's ways to soften that blow. But again, unless you have a legal signed contract, there's not a requirement that you have to stay. Okay, let's see. Let's go. Gail Landry. What is the best way to answer questions that involve your being let go when the real reason was compatibility issues, but employer has in their files performance? Okay. So if you received unemployment, that means, you went to the Texas workforce, if you're in Texas or whatever state you're in, and you got unemployment. I think it's fair. You don't ever want to lie, but it's fair for your next employer to go in and they say, what was your reason for leaving? And just say, it just wasn't the right position for me. And so after I left, I've been on unemployment this amount of time and now I'm looking for something new, and try to leave it at that and try to not answer. If it's something that you think you can, and that's not enough, or they're questioning you further, don't lie, because lying is something you have ethics or you don't, right? Don't lie. But not every employer is a good employer. Right? I mean, we get so focused on people saying, well, some job seekers are not all job seekers, or not all employees are good employees. Okay, yes, I will give you that, but not all employers are good employers. So it's okay to say, I took this job thinking it was going to be this, and explaining the situation, saying it wasn't. It was this instead. You don't want to spend the time just harping on the employee negative, the employer negative. Just say, look, I thought it was going to be this. It wasn't this. It did not work out. The expectations were different on both sides, because it's not every employer is a good employer, and HR and those of us hiring, we do realize that. So don't think that determination is necessarily going to 100% count you out from everything. Just explain the situation. Okay, Fatima, I'm a teacher, but now I want to move to a bookkeeper role. I have certifications with training. Actually, don't know either I come in the search or not. Okay, so I can't tell you if you want to book a one-on-one session with us. We can actually test your profile to see if you come up. But here are some of the key ways to come up in the searches. So one is definitely going to be job titles. So if you've never had a bookkeeper title before, then what you're going to want to do is do one of those currently seeking, do bookkeeper, and for the company say currently seeking this role. I'm assuming you're not still teaching. If you're still teaching and you can't do that, then because you don't want to jeopardize your current role, then the way to do that is to go to your open to work, turn it on without the green banner, because the intention is you turn it on that way when you don't want to endanger your current role, and then put bookkeeper in there. For when you're trying to make a pivot like this, you're going to have to make sure you're showing as many skills as you can. So if your time as a teacher, you had a budget that you had to maintain, that's something that counts. If you did volunteer work where you helped manage a budget, if you've taken a QuickBooks class, a SAP class, whatever, that's data that you want on there to share. When you're making a pivot like this, it can be easier to make it into a smaller company than a very larger company that's going to have a much, much bigger amount of candidates competing for the role. And it also can be easier if you go through a recruiting firm, a recruiting or staffing firm. Staffing firms are a little different than recruiting firms. Sometimes companies do both. But it can help because then they're going to help make the case to the new employer of, here, this person is trying to transition out, and here's what they're looking at. So consider utilizing those avenues as much as you can. Okay, next. Is it better to try to get contract jobs? It is not better full-time or contract. It's kind of what you need, right? If you're a contract in the US, you got to pay your own taxes. You don't get any kind of benefits. And it's not a ongoing job. The IRS actually does not like it when companies keep contractors for more than 12 months, because then they start saying, they're an employee. They should be paying tax. You company should be paying company tax on them. They should be eligible for benefits. So contract versus not contract is more dependent on you than it is about it being easier. Now, are there some jobs that it's easier to get contract than it is full-time? Yeah, probably, right? There's definitely jobs that are more gig jobs. Like if you're working on a website for somebody, they may not need that person long-term. So a contract thing would be easier in that situation. Okay, let's keep going. Susan Owens, my job ended in March. I picked up part-time work this month. Good for you, but it's completely unrelated to HR. Should I be including this work on my resume? My HR work would then fall below the top half of my resume. I would not include it. I would not include it at all on your resume. Your resume is a marketing document, and that does not help you in it. Now, I will say, however, if you feel like the time is passing too much, you can create that job seeker thing and then put this other job as a bullet underneath it. And that's, a way to kind of manage it going forward, but you don't have to feel like you have to include it. It is different when you're doing versus the old days where we had applications where you signed and you did the check. I verified that these are all the jobs that I've held true and complete, right? So no, you do not have to include that, Susan. Okay. Yep, Maureen is reminding everybody that we do offer one-on-one sessions if you're interested in doing those. What is the easiest way to find the hiring manager? It's not easy. It's not easy. But here's a couple ways that you can sometimes do it. One, if you go to the company that linked or that shared the posting, so if it's Exxon and you see where they've shared the posting, a lot of times the hiring managers go out and like their postings because they're trying to get better feedback, or they forward those postings. A lot of times they'll even comment on them of, would love to have, we're looking for a great member to join our team. And that gives you who the hiring manager is. So it's not always, 100% that they do it, but a lot of times the smaller the company, the more you see that. Feel free to stalk the company page and use Google search to your advantage. You're a smaller company and you're going to be a mechanical engineer coming in. So go out into Google, type in the company name, and then type in like engineering manager and hit enter and see what comes up. And a lot of times people go to different conferences or seminars and their data's out there, and you can kind of get a clue as to who the hiring manager is. If you're not certain, but you think it's the hiring manager or you think it's close enough to the hiring manager, if you still send them a message with your interests and stuff, a lot of times that person will say, oh, that's not me, and forward your data to the hiring manager. So if you can get close, a lot of times that will work for you as well. Okay. I have experience in handling sales and marketing projects, but want to transition into IT with no tech background. Any tips on how to get my resume shortlisted and succeed in interviews for IT roles? Okay. Anytime that you're trying to pivot from one thing to another, you want to do what's called a one-step adjacency. And so a one-step adjacency is instead of trying to, if you're in sales and marketing projects and you want to be in IT, going to IT into healthcare may not be your best entry. Instead, figure out in your sales and marketing what industry you're in there, and then try to get a similar company that has an IT opening. So your experience in the sales and marketing is still valuable to them in the IT role that you got. You can do this. The easiest way is definitely to make this pivot within the company that you're already in, right? And try to meet with your HR and say, look, I'm really wanting to shift my career to this, and see if they will help you get there and say, well, here's this role, here's your gap, right? Or you start meeting with the hiring managers of some of those roles, and here's your gap, and they help you get there internally. That's a company with a really great talent management program who tries to retain great employees, whether they want this career path or if they want this career path. That's great talent management. But if not, try to always get that adjacency so it's a little bit easier for you to make that move. Okay, let's go on. Good morning from New Jersey. What's the best platform to use to apply to jobs? I was laid back last May and applied to 2,500 positions on LinkedIn alone. Okay, if 2,500 jobs that you're applying to is a lot, I would want to know how many interviews you're getting. Are you getting any interviews at all? It's not the applying for jobs. Quantity is not as good as quality. So if you're applying to 100 jobs at one company because you want to get with that company, it can actually backfire against you. So first, don't apply for any jobs that you're not at least a 75% skill match to. If you're not that 75%, all you're doing is creating yourself as noise in the system. And when you apply to the same companies again and again, it shows that in the applicant tracking system. And I promise you, after a while, they're going to stop looking at you. I will tell you, I do it. If I have somebody that has applied to every single job that we post, and whether they are qualified or not, there was a point in time where with their name, I stopped looking at their resume. And then even if it was the perfect job, they may not be somebody that I'm looking at. So I don't recommend quantity over quality. If you are sending out 2,500 resumes and you are not getting any calls at all, that to me says there's something wrong potentially too with your resume, and that you may not be putting your best foot forward in your resume. So in that scenario, we do have the resume 2024 resume template. It's free, and the video that goes with it. Go out and watch that and see if that's matching up. It's possible you're making a kind of a key fatal flaw error on your resume that's stopping you from getting seen. Okay. To address job gaps, I've begun including in my cover letter or resume that I've actively participated in industry-specific communities such as networking, volunteering, and webinars. That is fantastic. And yes, I absolutely agree with that. That's what people care about with job gaps. Are you cold in your skills? Have you lost how to do this? Have you lost touch with the laws that govern you, or this new processes that are in your area? So the more you can do that, the better you are. Great job. Okay. How many bullet points are too many in a resume? I have never had somebody ask me this before. Okay, I can't give you a magic number. But here's what I would say is, it's a marketing document, right? So you want to show what's best for you. If you had a job that you just had an incredible amount of varied job duties, what I would recommend is you have one that's your home resume. That's the resume that has all of these things listed on. You don't send it out. It's just kind of like your master resume. And then when you're going to apply for jobs, delete out the bullets that don't apply. So you're focusing yourself in as a candidate. Does that require work from you as a job seeker to get it done? Yeah, it does. And guess what? Your full-time job is to find a job. I get very frustrated sometimes when job seekers say, I don't want to adjust my resume every time. I'm like, okay, I get that. But then you reap what you sow. If you're not willing to put in that extra effort, you may not get contacted as much. So, and I'm not saying, Marie, that you're doing that, but it's a frustrating thing for me sometimes when job seekers are like, yeah, I spent 30 minutes on my job search today. And I'm like, wait, I need 40. I need a full 40 from you in the week. So there's not a magic number, but it needs to be ones that are focused in. Now that is different than your LinkedIn profile. Your LinkedIn profile, nobody's ever going to read your whole LinkedIn profile. I promise you. Nobody's going to read every word on your LinkedIn profile. Put as many bullets as you possibly can that explain different pieces and parts of you that are valuable. So that way you come up in more keyword searches. LinkedIn automatically truncates the data, reduces it down. It's never overwhelming for a recruiter or something because we're not looking down beyond. Once we get attached to you enough that we think, this is a good candidate, we're asking for your resume. We're not printing off your LinkedIn profile. So resume, marketing document, keep it to a set that you think is going to help you most for the job. LinkedIn, go for it. Do as many as you possibly can. Okay, Adina asked, how do you catch them in ageism? I was just told I'm overqualified. You may just be overqualified, and that's not necessarily something that's 100% tied to your age, right? You can, have a PhD and they're looking to hire somebody doing this, and they can say you're overqualified. In my mind, it should be the job seeker should figure out what job they want. The company shouldn't try to push it down, but that's a whole other discussion. But how do you catch them? You can bet when I see a job, I'm sitting too still and my light keeps turning off. You can bet when I see a job posted that has a gender in it or has an age in it, I am taking it and sending it in because that is not appropriate. It is not okay. So if somebody sends you an email or something that says, we are looking for somebody younger for this role, you caught them. And that's something you should report in because that is not okay. If they say overqualified does not necessarily mean age. But if they state something like age or race or gender or anything that's protected under Title VII, report them in. Okay, Darren, I'm currently interviewing with a small company, and the remaining interviews are with the CRO, CFO, and CEO levels. Less than 5 candidates remain. How do I stand out in these interviews to close the deal? Okay, here's the thing. 1, research. Make sure you know as much data as you possibly can about that company and have time to think in advance of what they're going through, what their products are, what their markets are, where, if they have investor relations things, all that data and how it relates to your history so you can speak intelligently and connect the dots for them. And then you have to think about the lens that each one of these people is going to be seeing you through. And so when I mean the lens is the CFO is very focused on the numbers, right? So when they're looking at you, they're going to be looking at you from that accounting and finance realm. So when they're asking you questions or when you're answering questions that they're in the room, you want to make sure that you're doing answers that align to their lens. Let's say your CEO is the position that you're applying for is in, let's even say it's a chief HR officer or CHRO, and the CEO is an engineer. Is a mechanical engineer in their past history. That gives you data about how that they think in engineering. So if when you're giving back an example, when they're saying, well, tell me about what you did in this, and you can talk back about how you worked with the engineering team specifically in order to get this through to hit the company's bottom end results, that's going to talk to that person. You're giving them information that connects into their world. And how do you do that? Research, 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 research. Find out as much as you can about the company and each one of those individuals. And then you're just going to have some general guides, right? You know, the CFO is going to be more about numbers. You know, the CEO is going to be about, if they're public, the analysts, the street, and all about the overarching operations of the company. So think through their lens when you're giving the answers to their questions. Okay. Let's see. Maureen is highlighting one of our new videos that came out, which is, do you have imposter syndrome? This was actually a request from one of the job seekers on one of our past videos that asked, could we do a video on what is imposter syndrome and how it affects me as a job seeker and how I work around that? So that is one of the new ones that we did. Okay. Let's see. How to balance the prospects of taking part-time or 1099 work and continue looking for full-time work. What to do to make part-time work not look like that is all you want, or you're not available for full-time because of your part-time job. Okay, so in this scenario, what I do recommend you do is you still create at the top of your resume or your LinkedIn profile that you're currently seeking the following role, and then put the part-time work as a bullet underneath. While seeking full-time role, continuing to look for, or while seeking full-time, currently working the following part-time, if you feel like it fits in with what you were doing. And that way the eye is not drawn to just the part-time, full-time. I will tell you too, you don't have to answer on LinkedIn, on your resume in general, it doesn't say part-time or full-time unless you put it. And on your LinkedIn profile, there is a selection there when you enter in the jobs to put, is this full-time, part-time, whatever. It is not a required field. So if you want to put it, but you don't want to put it and you want to have that as a conversation with somebody on the phone or on a video interview, then do it that way. And just don't put it as that. It's, again, you're not lying. This is marketing of you as a candidate. And so if you feel like the marketing or the word is leading somebody in the wrong direction, that all you want is part-time, then take off that word. And then instead you can have that conversation with them. Well, while I'm looking for full-time work, I'm currently working this part-time role, blah, blah, blah. It's much easier to explain yourself when you get more than just one little word as opposed to getting an actual phone conversation. Is it okay to apply for 2 to 3 roles at the same company if I got an interview with HR for one role? Yes, it is, as long as you're a match, a 75% match for those other roles. There's lots of times with bigger companies, you may be interested in 3, 4, 5 jobs, and you, in fact, are a match for them. It's okay to apply. And in fact, I recommend it because a lot of times, the bigger the company, they have more than one in their talent and recruiting and sourcing team. And so this rec may be aligned with this one, and this rec may be aligned with this one. And you may have an internal candidate that applied for this one that's going to get it, but didn't apply for this one. So as long as you're a 75% match, it's totally okay to do that. Maureen has an answer here. Do not chew gum. Okay, she's telling you this from, I can't tell you how many people come in for interviews or do interviews chewing gum. It's not something that you should be doing during an interview. You shouldn't be eating. You shouldn't be chewing gum. None of that stuff. None of that stuff. Okay. Carrie is asking, the talent pool would be candidates that showed up in the search. That is correct. So there's, in LinkedIn Recruiter, there's the pipeline, which is kind of like the larger, and then the talent pool is the ones that you've saved in. So when it's talking about she's talking about when I was showing LinkedIn Recruiter earlier, but my point was we want those results to be going smaller anyway when we're adding in more parameters. But yes, you are correct. Somebody said follow you. Yes, feel free to follow me out on LinkedIn, as well as all of our other different areas. You can follow our company page to see our company updates of things that we're working on and doing and positions when we post them. So absolutely. Okay. When I go to LinkedIn Apply, then it shows a different URL. Would that be a dependable link? If you are on LinkedIn and you click that apply button, yes, I feel like it is a dependable link, because that just means when I go through, let me back up. If my applicant tracking system is connected to LinkedIn directly, I have a choice when I post a job. I can say, have candidates, send the resume to this address, or I can say, have them apply at this link. And when I do that, then when you hit that link, it takes you through to the company website into their system. That is still a reliable link. Okay. Let's see. My question related to changing the country in LinkedIn profile. I'm living in a country A and I want to get a job in country B. Should I change my profile location to country B to get opportunities? Okay, this can be challenging because the problem with going country to country is then you end up with visas, and there's visa requirements. And so by you just changing it to the country, then you're probably going to have a visa issue anyway, unless you already are authorized to work in that other country. Now, it would be great if LinkedIn lets you actually create two profiles where you can have one in one country and one in another, but they don't let you do that. You're only allowed to have one profile. So you can do it, but I'm not sure. I think you might get contacted for a lot that you're not going to be able to apply for because you don't have a visa. Whereas if you do it with your open to work, when you're doing a country change, saying I'm looking for things in this country, companies that are searching and using it that way are going to be companies that are more likely to offer some kind of visa, because they know when they're doing that, there's going to be some kind of visa requirement. So when you're changing countries, I think you're better off doing it that way rather than changing your primary location. Okay. Phil Yates says, if you have LinkedIn Premium, a job post will often say who the poster is, and you can then send them an in message. That is correct. You can send them in mail if they have that. And in fact, most recruiters, you can send them one for free. It is a choice. Every time I do a job posting or anybody else does a job posting, there's a box that says, let them know that you're the poster. And if you click it, then it's tied to you as the poster. If not, that's why you don't see it sometimes, the people. But yes, a lot of times people do actually do that. Lauren says, I took a year off from paid work to caretake for family. Should I clarify the work gap on my LinkedIn profile or my CV? I have an LLC, so it appears that there is work continuity, but I wasn't working. Okay, I'm okay with you putting an LLC and saying you're consulting or something if you did some kind of consulting. If you did nothing and there was no consulting and no work there, then I think you are crossing the line, and they're going to see that as falsifying data. So, if you had an LLC for the whole year and you did sporadic consulting, it's fine to keep it. But you might want to reverse how you're doing this, where instead you have that year off, and it's okay to take a leave of absence. It's okay to take a personal leave off. So you're just going to want to say the job title that you're looking for, currently seeking in the company, and then explain, during a personal family leave, I chose to do some consulting or do whatever, and I'm now ready to get back to work. But I don't think if you didn't do any consulting, you don't want to lie and say that you did. I hope that answers that, Lauren. If not, let me know. Okay. Martha, hi, Melanie. Thank you for this love session. I do love my job seekers. What can one do if Clear on LinkedIn is not working as a verification method and no other method is offered? I wish I had a good answer for you on this. I know some people have really had a challenge. You can send LinkedIn Help a message and ask if they can help you with the verified. I will tell you at the moment, the verified is not really making any difference, other than I think people, when they're connecting with other people, feel a little bit more comfortable connecting with somebody who's verified. But I don't have data to back that up. So that's just kind of what I've heard from people. So I haven't seen any other place where it's actually, I know it doesn't help you in the searches. I did test that. So I'm not sure how else it is helping you. So I wouldn't stress about it too terribly much. You can reach out to LinkedIn Help, but LinkedIn actually closes for a week. And I'm pretty sure that's next week that they're closed. And the only thing open is like third level support and stuff, all their account managers. They close for a week. It's either next week or like the week after that or something. But so if your response time is a little longer than normal, which is pretty long anyway, usually that might be the reason why, but you might want to consider putting something in that way and seeing if they can help. Sorry, I wish I could help you more with that one. Phil Yates says, if you have a hiring manager's name or an internal HR person's name, you can reverse engineer their email address if you know someone else's email address within the company. You are 100% right, Phil. Absolutely. And in fact, you can, it's pretty easy to find email addresses until you get to really big companies, because then they start doing funky things like putting a number after people's names if they've got, 2 Phil Yates or something. With most companies, the what comes after the @ symbol is the exact same as their website. So for example, our website is www.cglrecruiting.com. So our emails after the @ sign is @cglrecruiting.com. So you can pretty much know that part. And the first part, there's usually about 4 naming conventions. It's first name, last name, full first name dot last name, or first initial last name with no period or dot. There's only so many things. So you can try to send one, and if it doesn't work and it bounces back, try using one of the others and sending it that way. You can usually figure it out. How many steps, Fatima, how many steps are taken usually by recruiters or hiring managers for interviewing remote employees? Who is better for remote job seekers, hiring managers or recruiters? The number of steps honestly depends with the company. With most, there is some type of phone interview or initial interview. Then there is a face-to-face interview. Some companies are going to hire at that point. Other companies are going to go to a panel or another type of interview. Some companies will just keep going. I mean, I've heard 9, 10 interviews. Don't love that, but some companies do choose to do more rather than less. What is better for remote job seekers, the hiring manager, the recruiters? There's really not one that's better. It's just who you can manage to get a hold of, but there's really not one better than the other. Marie, someone posted on LinkedIn, if you have a job gap for a while and have volunteered or worked on projects, to just put that in your resume as consultant or advisor and self-employed. Nope, I don't agree with that. Because I think if you have volunteered and you call that self-employed, I think you're lying. And I think that they're going to, when they talk with you about it and they understand more, they're going to think that you're dishonest, and that's going to rule you out. There is a place to put this volunteer work in your LinkedIn profile. You can add that as a profile section. It's okay to put it up there, but I wouldn't put it as self-employed, right? I think you could put it as work you're doing while continuing your job search. But I don't think I would, make it seem like you were actually employed, because if you were employed, they could still want to go back there for a reference, and then it's going to come out and it's not going to be good. I think that might be going a little too far, my opinion. How long should you wait between resume tweaks? I recently updated mine after thousands of application, but when do I know when more tweaks are necessary? Well, you should be tweaking it every application, right? Every time, like if you go to our resume template, you're going to see at the top, there's a couple different things. One of them is at the top, there's a bolded part that classifies you in as a candidate. And so if you are a supply chain manager, you bold up their supply chain manager. So it's really clear in the recruiter's mind right away, hey, I got a supply chain manager resume. And then there's a section which is in a table. And yes, tables work fine in applicant tracking systems. Tested them. It's totally fine. But the table is the different key skills that you're trying to draw the eye to for the recruiter to say, yes, I have this. You're looking for this. I have this, this, and this. And you should be tweaking that when you're applying for different roles, so they're seeing what's most important and aligns you to that job. As far as an overarching complete redo of your resume, it really kind of depends on how, if you're not getting any responses, something's going wrong. If you're not getting any interviews at all, something is going wrong if you're doing thousands of resumes. Either it's your resume format, it's that you're applying for positions that there's not a match. If you're going to see more of this if you're going remote only, right? When you're applying for on-site or hybrid, you're applying for people that are within a small locale. When you're applying for remote jobs, you're applying against the world. And the world, I can tell you, is applying to those jobs. And so there's a much bigger population that you're having to fight against to prove that you're the best one. So that could be if you're not seeing anything from thousands and you're only going remote. If you need a job, you should seriously consider the hybrid scenario. And if you do great, if you do hybrid and you're 2 days in the office and 3 days at home, and they love you, then you have more negotiation power after you've shown them what you can do to say, I really want remote, and start eking it down 4 days at home, 1 in the office, and then 5 at home, and seeing if you can't get them to agree that way. Joanne has asked, is JobScan worth paying for? I realize that JobScan can be helpful. I'm not a big fan of it because JobScan, for those of you that don't know, it'll go in and look at your resume against a position and say, how big is your keyword match and stuff like that. The problem is it's not intelligent enough to know which keywords are more important than others, in my mind. And because it doesn't do that, it's not, you can do the same thing by just saying, okay, here's my resume, and I'm going to look at the job description. The job description is there requiring SAP. Do I have SAP on my resume? Yes, I do. I'm good. They're requiring this. Do I have this? Yes, I do. This. Now, there are some applicant tracking systems that rate you higher as a candidate based on the skills that you have on your resume. The more skills you have, or the more time something shows up. The words that are on there are important. As a job seeker, I know money is tight, and you can do the same thing JobScan is doing. It just does save you some time. Some companies require you to tell them when you graduated from college. Is this age discrimination? No, it's not age discrimination that they require you to know that. College is not a linear path. Some people may have graduated from college last year. Some people may have graduated 20 years ago, and they could be the exact same age. So college graduation date is not an absolute indicator of age. They would not consider this age discrimination. Just because you know somebody's age does not mean you discriminated against them with their age either. Right? It's utilizing it in a negative manner that causes the discrimination. Thank you for this kind words. We're doing our best to help. Okay, somebody asked, may we have the link to the free resume template, please? You absolutely can. Here's the catch on this. We tried just giving out the template, and everybody was taking the template, making all these changes to it, and then saying, I don't understand why it's working. And so we're like, well, it's because everything we told you not to do, and the reason we did it this way, you undid. So what we do now is we say you have to go to the resume video, the 2024 resume video, and watch the video and just put a comment on the video requesting the resume template, and we'll email it to you. Now, I am asking, though, how much the video you watch is up to you, but at least then you'll know where that video is. So if you go, before you start changing and adjusting things, we try to explain in the video why we do certain things the way that we do. Because if you understand what we tested and what we did, then it's going to help you with that document not to make changes that are going to hurt you, and it'll help you with other things that you're also doing in understanding how the recruiting process works. Okay, let's see. I recently have been laid off and have been applying like crazy, but haven't gotten calls back. I'm a HCM professional, 7 years management experience in SaaS companies. Listen, it is very possible it is not you. There are a lot of people on the market. If you do, if you're applying for positions that are that 75% match and you are not hearing anything back, switch some of your energy. Hopefully at the same time you're applying, you're working your network. You've built a network for a reason, and you should be continuing to build your network every single day. If you're not building your network, then what's a sense? If you're not utilizing the network you built, then what's a sense of having them? So try to change a little bit and reach out to some of those people and say, I have been laid off and I'm really looking for this. And I was wondering if you had any connections or any positions at your company and maybe could help me, and start doing that. Start going to some industry events, whether online, virtual, or in person. A lot of ones that are local are very cheap to get into and sometimes even free. Try changing your full approach and don't just focus on applying. Snipes Entertainment, degrees don't matter anymore over experience. I so wish this was true. This is not true. This is not a true statement. In fact, what you're going to see is a lot of the systems, when they put in that a bachelor degree is required, they're going to have the system automatically reject you if you don't have it. So I wish I could say that this was a true statement. This is not a true statement at all. Now, do I believe that you need, do you need a master's degree for an entry-level job? Most of them, I think you do not. Do you need a PhD, a doctorate in medicine if you're going to be a surgeon? Well, then yes, you do, right? And there are some positions that require you to have certain degrees, right? But for the vast majority, while I agree with the intent of this statement, it is not true with the way that recruiting is still done. And if it's a requirement in there, that recruiter, if it says, no, it's a requirement, and then the hiring manager says a requirement, they're going to hold it as a requirement, unfortunately. Let's see. Do you think it is worth it to get LinkedIn Premium for job seekers? It's so expensive. It is crazy, crazy expensive. Do I think it's worth it? It definitely has some advantages with the search filters you can do, with the number of people you can connect with, send out, the metrics you get to see. Is it worth the money? Here's what I would say is, in general, I think it's too expensive for job seekers, and you need to be in cash conservation mode as much as you can. You can still access LinkedIn Learning by going to a public library. A lot of times they'll still call it Linda. It won't automatically add the stuff to your profile, but you can manually add the stuff you do to your profile. So taking that out of the equation, I don't know that it is. I think that there's other ways that you can work the system a little hard and still get it. It does not, if you pay for LinkedIn Premium and you apply for a job, it does not put you in a preferred state with the way it comes through to the candidates. I don't see premium seekers any different. And there's no job search filter for premium seekers either. Let's see. Snipe said, I'm observing that AI is taking over support roles. I think that, man, the world is changing quick, and it's going to continue to take over support and other roles. And the roles that are still here, it's going to be changing constantly. That's why I showed you that little bit of the AI and LinkedIn Recruiter. There's a lot of things being called AI that are really just refining how things are searched. Facebook and Meta has this AI thing, which is just another search thing right now. There's no true AI in it from my standpoint. But I do think you need to stay aware with what's happening in your job and your industry with AI, because it is coming, and it's coming fast and hard. Carrie said, any update on the industry issue? Unfortunately, no. You can still only have one primary industry. It does not, there's not a way for you to choose more or for it to search more than one. I wish there was. Another question, my current job is not in my career math. Should I put it in my profile, a job with the title I'm looking for? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But the danger is if you're working a current job, by doing that, is it going to endanger your current role? Some employers have bad behaviors and they will cut you if they see that you're looking for a new job, and it's not illegal for them to do that, right? Unless you're in a non-at-will state. But if you're in an at-will employment state in the U.S., they can cut you for whatever reason they want, good or bad. They may have to pay you unemployment, but they can cut you for any reason. But that's why that open to work section works without the green banner. That's why that was created. So if you put it in there, your target job, and turn it on without the green banner, that will hide that you have that on from anybody who is in the same company as you, that is tied to the same company. Question, do you think the job market is going to improve this year for the oversaturated TA HR? What advice do you have to make yourself stand out? What about a SHRM cert? SHRM certs are always great. There's HRCI ones, and then there's SHRM ones. I have 2 HRCIs and 1 SHRM. I still feel like the HRCI ones are more powerful. I see them used more on job descriptions and other things than the SHRM ones. But do I think it's going to improve this year? I think we're all waiting to see what's going to happen. And I'd love to say 100% yes, but I honestly don't know. I honestly do not know what's going to happen. This has been the weirdest job market over the past couple of years since COVID. I am hopeful. We do have a huge subset of baby boomers that hit retirement age, and that's going to be happening continually from here on out. And we know that as the baby boomers exit out, there is a workforce shortage. And so that workforce shortage is going to cause issues for the rest of the companies trying to hire. So that should help us all out. But we also know AI is taking over a bunch of jobs. So I'm not 100% certain. I wish I had a crystal ball for that. Let's see. I know we're at 12 o'clock. I'm going to try and stay on until about 12:20. And then if we don't get other questions, I will try to see if we can't get the other questions answered another way, and we'll schedule another live as soon as we can. During an interview, how do you convey value to the organization instead of overselling your skills? Okay, so during an interview, it's not about selling your skills. It's about selling what you can accomplish with your skills, right? So that's why when we go through, we're focused on not just, yes, I am great at doing employee relations. During my last role, there was a serious employee relations issue that was undermining the profitability of the manufacturing organization. Here's how I approached it, and here's what I did. Here's what the end results is. So you're trying to sell your skills through the impact you had in the past company and how that will help you influence their future company. That's where you want to focus on, not just on, yes, I have this skill, and here's my training and education in the skill. My LinkedIn profile has months for both start and end dates. I've seen some folks that have only years. Is this a good idea if the person has a long gap? You absolutely, on your LinkedIn profile, can put in just years. You don't have to put in months. Lots of people do that to hide gaps, right? Because then it's marketing. It's not the gaps weren't there. They're just saying, I worked this one from 2019 to 2021, this one from 2022 to 2025 or 2024. So you can absolutely do that if it works better for you. My only thing is be consistent, because when you're not consistent, then it starts to look a little bit weird. Let's see. What job title is the most transparent for teachers to qualify for other roles? Okay, so there's 4 videos we did for teachers. This actually kind of depends on what the teacher is targeting. A lot of times, it's more about translating those teacher skills. Like, for example, we had a teacher that was trying to move into a customer service manager role. And for that, we had to take the experience that the person did in managing the different peers that they were working with, and the parent. And the other thing of how to do conflict resolution and mediation to get to an end result. So it's more about translating those skills to be able to do it that can be incredibly helpful. The job title is more dependent upon the job title you're targeting. And that depends on what you want to do, let's see. I've applied for a lot of jobs and unsure if my name is marked by ATS. Should I try changing my last name to my middle name and email? No, I wouldn't do that. But what you can do is most all applicant tracking systems are actually based on email, not on your name. So don't change your my last name to middle name. Don't change your name on your resume or anything. But if you feel like you may have overhit a company and you may now have a really great role you want to be considered for, use a different email address. Go out into Gmail, create a free email account that's got a different thing, and you can apply using that other free one. Just don't do the same thing again, because if they start seeing it again, not a great thing. Let's see. How are we doing time? Would you say for remote jobs and even other online jobs, your odds are much greater if you apply the same day the job is posted? I think early entry is always good, because early entry, when I start looking at candidates that are coming in, I'm looking at the ones that are, coming in as they do. And so if after I've seen 100 candidates, and I've said of this 100, I'm going to go through and interview 20 of them, because there's 20 of them that have the skills that I actually need. I'm not going to look at the next 100 that come in until I've made it through those first 20. So it does help you from that standpoint to always be early entry. Let's see. Let me see what the questions. Somebody asks, I don't see any of the differences your resume formats from this year, 2024, from last year. There are some very subtle minor differences. We actually didn't do one in 2023, but it's very close to 2022. And that's because when we tested everything, a lot of the things were exactly the same. The video is different because it's going to tell you how the resumes are managed different. So it used to be back in 2022, the resumes were still a lot of parsing, which parsing is when it's taking parts of your resume from different areas and putting it into certain areas in your applicant tracking system. The parsing in 2024 has gotten much better. And most of the applicant tracking systems now, if I go in, there's a way to search for candidates, right, in the applicant tracking systems. And when you're in there working for them, they now not only pull data from the parsed parts of the applicant tracking profile, but also from the full resume that you've uploaded, whether in a Word doc or a PDF. So that is some of the major changes that occurred. Let's see. Is it okay to exclude months and link to, I think we already did that one. Okay. I think we have covered all of the questions that we have. I can see the boomers leaving is actually a skilled workforce shortage. Yeah, the boomers leaving is putting us in a really big shortage. I mean, everything we see predicts that shortfall coming hard in the US, right? But again, jobs are getting taken over or getting less with more with AI. And the example I'll give you this is, in our parents' and grandparents' generation, there was a role of manager, and that was a career that you could get. You could get a degree in management. And there was some people's job title was never not manager of engineering, not manager of this. It was just manager, right? That doesn't exist anymore. Everybody is now a working manager. And when you're a manager specialized over something. You're an accounting manager. You're a human resources manager, an IT manager, a sales manager, right? And you're very focused on not just the management, but you're a working manager. And that's because so many of the administrivia parts of management have been handled by computers, and the internet's speeding everything up. AI is going to do the same thing. Keep on top of this market with the AI so you know what's coming and what's going to be happening next to help ensure your job security not only for today, but for tomorrow. All right, job seekers. As always, we really appreciate all that you guys do back to help support us by sharing our messages out with other job seekers. The more you can help us with that, the better. We really appreciate it because it helps our message go further. If you have further questions, we look at every single comment on our videos. And if you put a comment, we do our best to answer it and respond to it. So please feel free, if you watch a video and you have a question, put a comment. And I will try to make sure that we get another live session scheduled sometime in the near future. All right, everyone, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.